Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer. The name sends shivers down the spines of those who remember the terror that gripped Milwaukee in the late 1980s. Dahmer was a monster hiding in plain sight. A seemingly ordinary man, he harbored a dark secret. Behind his unremarkable facade lived a serial killer of unspeakable cruelty. He preyed on young men, lured them to their deaths, and committed acts of unimaginable horror. Dahmer's crimes shocked a nation. He didn't just kill, he dismembered, he cannibalized. He kept souvenirs of his victims, a grotesque collection that testified to his depravity. His apartment, once a place of refuge, became a tomb, a charnel house of unspeakable acts. The story of Jeffrey Dahmer is not for the faint of heart. It is a descent into the darkest corners of the human psyche, a chilling reminder that monsters can lurk where we least expect them. This is the story of the Milwaukee Monster. Jeffrey Dahmer was born in 1960, a time of great social change and upheaval in America. His childhood, seemingly ordinary on the surface, hid hints of the darkness to come. Growing up in a typical suburban neighborhood, his early years were marked by a facade of normalcy. Some point to his early fascination with animal bones, a morbid curiosity that would later morph into something far more sinister. This unusual interest was an early indicator of his troubled psyche. Others cite the emotional neglect he experienced, the lack of connection that may have warped his sense of empathy. His parents' tumultuous relationship left him feeling isolated and abandoned. As a teenager, Dahmer became increasingly withdrawn. He struggled to fit in, often finding himself on the fringes of social circles. He grappled with his sexuality, his isolation growing with each passing day. The confusion and shame he felt only deepened his sense of alienation. Alcohol became a crutch, a way to numb the pain and confusion that gnawed at him. It was his escape from the harsh realities of his life. He fantasized about control, about possessing others. These fantasies were a dark escape, a way to feel powerful in a world where he felt powerless. These dark thoughts festered, a toxic brew waiting for the right moment to explode. They were the seeds of the horrors that would later unfold. There were signs, whispers of the monster he was becoming. People around him sensed something was off, but no one intervened. But they went unnoticed, or perhaps ignored. The warning signs were there, but they were either missed or dismissed. The boy who would become a monster was allowed to slip through the cracks, his descent into darkness unnoticed. Society failed to see the brewing storm. The consequences would be devastating. The world would later look back in horror, wondering how such evil could have gone unchecked. The summer of 1978, Dahmer, just 18 years old, committed his first murder. His victim, Stephen Hicks, a hitchhiker, lured to Dahmer's childhood home with the promise of beer and companionship. It was a crime of opportunity, fueled by alcohol and a burgeoning need to dominate. Dahmer bludgeoned Hicks to death. The act, brutal and unplanned, filled him with a horrifying sense of power. He dismembered Hicks's body, scattering the remains in the woods behind his house. The killing was just the beginning, the first terrifying step on a path that would lead to unimaginable horrors. The next 9 years were marked by a chilling silence. Dahmer moved to Ohio, then to Germany, all the while battling his dark impulses. But the monster within him was growing stronger, the urge to kill becoming an insatiable hunger. In 1987, the monster was unleashed. Dahmer, now living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, claimed his second victim. From there, the killings escalated, becoming more frequent, more depraved. He targeted young men, often on the fringes of society, lured to his apartment with promises of money, drugs, or simply a listening ear. Dahmer's methods were cold and calculated. He would drug his victims, rendering them helpless before strangling them. But the killing was only the beginning. Dahmer would engage in acts of unspeakable cruelty, dismembering the bodies, preserving body parts as trophies, even engaging in cannibalism. His apartment became a house of horrors. The smell of decay permeated the building. Neighbors complained, but Dahmer, a master manipulator, managed to deflect their suspicions. He led a double life, a monster hiding in plain sight. Dahmer's apartment was a chilling testament to his madness. Empty bottles of alcohol and chloroform littered the floor. Tools of his gruesome trade, a power drill, handcuffs, a meat cleaver lay scattered about. But it was the contents of his refrigerator that truly horrified investigators. Inside, they found severed heads, neatly wrapped in plastic. Human hearts, saved for later consumption. A stew pot containing human hands. Dahmer, it seemed, was attempting to create his own grotesque museum of death, a macabre shrine to his insatiable bloodlust. The discovery of Polaroid photographs offered a further glimpse into Dahmer's twisted psyche. The photos documented his crimes in chilling detail, capturing his victims in various stages of dismemberment. They were a testament to Dahmer's chilling detachment, his complete lack of remorse. As Dahmer's body count grew, so too did the suspicions surrounding him. Neighbors complained about the foul odor emanating from his apartment. The police were called on several occasions, but Dahmer, with his calm demeanor and plausible explanations, managed to evade capture. He was a master manipulator, able to convince others that everything was fine, even as the evidence of his crimes piled up around him. But Dahmer's luck was about to run out. On July 22, 1991, one of his intended victims managed to escape. Tracy Edwards, dazed and terrified, flagged down a police car. He told a horrifying story of his ordeal inside Dahmer's apartment, of handcuffs and threats, and a strange smell that made him fear for his life. The police accompanied Edwards back to Dahmer's apartment. What they found there would shock the world. Inside Dahmer's apartment, the police uncovered a scene of unimaginable horror. The dimly lit rooms were filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the sounds of the officers' footsteps and their gasps of disbelief. Human remains littered the apartment, a grim testament to the atrocities committed within those walls. The forensic team meticulously documented every gruesome detail, piecing together the horrific puzzle. Photographs documented his crimes in gruesome detail, each image more disturbing than the last. These visual records would later serve as crucial evidence in the trial that was to come. The smell of decay was overwhelming, a sickening reminder of the lives lost. Forensic experts wearing masks to shield themselves from the stench worked tirelessly to uncover the full extent of Dahmer's depravity. Dahmer was arrested that night, his reign of terror finally coming to an end. The community breathed a collective sigh of relief, knowing that a dangerous predator was off the streets. He confessed to his crimes, detailing his horrific acts with a chilling detachment that sent shockwaves through the courtroom. His lack of remorse was as terrifying as the crimes themselves. His trial, which began in January 1992, captivated the nation. The media frenzy surrounding the case was unprecedented, with every detail of the proceedings broadcast to a horrified public. The world listened in horror as the details of Dahmer's crimes were revealed. The sheer scale of his brutality was almost beyond comprehension, leaving many to question how such evil could exist. The gruesome photographs, the accounts of his victims' families painted a picture of a man consumed by evil. The pain and suffering of the families were palpable, their grief a stark contrast to Dahmer's cold demeanor. Yet, through it all, Dahmer remained eerily calm, his demeanor cold and detached. His lack of emotion only added to the horror of his actions, leaving those in the courtroom and beyond deeply unsettled. On February 17, 1992, Jeffrey Dahmer was found guilty on 15 counts of murder. The judge's verdict was met with a mix of relief and sorrow as justice was finally served. He was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms, a total of 957 years in prison. This sentence ensured that Dahmer would never again walk free, a small comfort to the families of his victims. Justice, it seemed, had been served. But the questions lingered. How could such a monster have gone undetected for so long? The community was left grappling with the aftermath, seeking answers and solace. How could such a monster have gone undetected for so long? The investigation into Dahmer's life revealed missed opportunities and ignored warnings, a sobering reminder of the importance of vigilance. And what could be done to prevent such horrors from happening again? Communities came together, determined to learn from the past and ensure a safer future for all. The question of what drove Dahmer to commit such horrific acts has haunted criminologists and psychologists for decades. Some point to his troubled childhood, the emotional neglect, and the early fascination with death as contributing factors. Others cite his struggles with alcoholism and his repressed sexuality as potential triggers. During his trial, Dahmer claimed that he craved complete control over his victims, that he longed to possess them completely, even in death. His cannibalism, he claimed, was an attempt to make his victims a permanent part of him. His explanations, though disturbing, offered a chilling glimpse into the mind of a killer. Though experts have offered various theories, The truth is that there is no single explanation for Dahmer's actions. He was a product of a complex interplay of factors, a perfect storm of nature and nurture that culminated in unimaginable evil. Jeffrey Dahmer's crimes left an indelible scar on the city of Milwaukee and on the national psyche. His victims, mostly young men of color, were failed by a system that often overlooked their disappearances. Dahmer's case sparked outrage and calls for reform, highlighting the systemic racism and homophobia that allowed his crimes to continue for so long. The families of Dahmer's victims were left to grapple with the unimaginable loss and the knowledge that their loved ones had suffered such horrific fates. Many struggled to come to terms with the gruesome details of the case, their lives forever altered by Dahmer's cruelty. In the years since Dahmer's capture and conviction, there has been a concerted effort to remember the victims, to give them a voice and to ensure that they are not defined solely by their connection to the monster who took their lives. The story of Jeffrey Dahmer, with its gruesome details and haunting implications, has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and films. His life and crimes have fascinated and horrified people around the world, leading to a plethora of media that seeks to explore every facet of his dark legacy. Some have explored the psychological underpinnings of his crimes, attempting to understand what drove him to kill. These analyses delve into his troubled childhood, his mental health issues, and the possible triggers that led to his horrific actions. Others have focused on the impact of his actions on the victims' families and the wider community. The pain and suffering experienced by those left behind is a stark reminder of the far-reaching consequences of his crimes. Documentaries like The Jeffrey Dahmer Files and the Netflix series The Jeffrey Dahmer Story have offered chilling insights into Dahmer's crimes, using archival footage, interviews, and dramatic reenactments to paint a portrait of a killer and his victims. These productions aim to provide a comprehensive view of the events, shedding light on the complexities of Dahmer's psyche and the devastating impact on his victims. While these portrayals have been met with mixed reactions, they serve as a reminder of the very real human cost of Dahmer's crimes and the importance of confronting the darkest aspects of human nature. Some viewers find these depictions to be exploitative, while others believe they are necessary for understanding and preventing future atrocities. They remind us that monsters can lurk in the shadows, and that we must remain vigilant, seeking justice for the vulnerable, and fighting to ensure that such horrors are never repeated. The stories of Dahmer's victims and the tireless efforts of those who seek justice for them underscore the need for continued awareness and action against such evil. Thank you for watching our deep dive into some of history's most notorious serial killers. If you enjoyed this exploration and want to uncover more chilling true crime stories, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue bringing you the fascinating and sometimes disturbing details behind these infamous cases. Stay tuned for more, and we'll see you in the next video.